What I know is that Damon Williams needs to start the final game at Oregon. Well, here we are coming down the home stretch of old Dawg Talk with Brock. It's going to go a little bit longer as these Huskies became bowl eligible, which I think was the goal from the very jump this season. Certainly in my mind, I think as things played out over the course of the year, and I'll get to that through what I've learned, what I think, and what I know, I think that was top priority for Jedd Fisch with this roster, with Denzel Boston and Jonah Coleman and Giles Jackson and Will Rogers and Tupatolo and Carson Byrne. There was enough there to get to a bowl game. And maybe, my number of 7, coulda, shoulda, woulda with the Rutgers game and the Wazoo game. Who knows, maybe even 8. But beyond any of that was going to be a stretch. So here's what I learned. Here's what I think. Here's what I know. Here's what I learned. Here's what I think, what I know. I said very definitively last week that was a must-win game for the University of Washington. I learned over the course of it that seniority does not trump productivity. That Will Rogers started that game was not surprised, even after the benching and the blowout and everything else in Happy Valley, because a bowl game was on the line, because it was a must-win game. I think Will Rogers, at the start of that game, gave you the best chance to win. As it played out, and you got a little bit of a lead, and as it played out in that second half, it became very clear. You could not block UCLA's front 7 in the Vita Vea facsimile. You just could not handle them. And Will Rogers forced into and made 2 bad decisions and 2 bad interceptions, and instead of superiority or seniority, not superiority, seniority winning out, I learned that Jedd Fisch said, nope, I'm sorry, you're a good soldier. You got paid some good money in NIL. You've done some great things for us this year. But we got to win this game. And the only way we're going to win this game is to bring in some athleticism that can get out of this pocket, that can change the eyes of UCLA, that can get outside the havoc that this nose tackle is creating on almost every single snap. So I learned that Jedd Fisch would do whatever it took, and in that game and in those 60 minutes, to get a must-win in that win column and get bowl eligible. That's number one. Here's what I think. I think this season in the Big Ten played out exactly the way many of us forecasted. Many of us looked at it on paper before the season began and thought, yep, Penn State's going to be really good. Ohio State's going to be really good. Oregon's going to be really good. And guess what? They're all sitting there now. Not many picked Indiana, but 4 of the top 5 in the college football playoff right now in this Big Ten, very top heavy. I think many of us thought that the Big 12 would be Utah and Oklahoma State and some of these teams that were picked to win it. And instead, well, it flipped right on over. And it's Arizona State and it's BYU and it's Colorado, who I'm going to see for the 4th time. I think had Washington been in the Big 12, this would be a very different season. But being in the toughest conference in America, the most top-heavy conference in America, it very clearly showed Jedd Fisch and this program what you are and what you're not. And what you are is a middle-of-the-pack 6-5 team, and what you are not is one of those power brokers. So how are you going to get there? And that leads me to what I know. What I know is that Damon Williams needs to start the final game at Oregon. A bye this week, some extra time to rest, some extra time to celebrate bowl eligibility and a 6-5 record and an undefeated season at home. Kudos to those seniors, and 20 in a row at home. Kudos to the program. But I know moving forward, Damon Williams has got to start that game in Eugene. I've been in Autzen Stadium twice this year. I've been there a multitude of times over Dan Lanning's 3 years now. They're the number 1 team in the country because, well, they got a bunch of dudes like UCLA had in the front 7 and even more. They've got more of them up front. They've got more of them at the 2nd level. They've got more of them at the 3rd level. They are Penn State plus. Right? And you saw what happened in Happy Valley in that first half when you could not move the ball with Will Rogers. You saw what happened when your offensive line could not protect Penn State, could not really protect against Iowa, could not protect as that game went on against UCLA. And what did you do in all of those occasions? You went to the more dynamic, athletic Damon Williams. I know if you're going to have any chance in what will likely be a 20-something point spread, who knows, maybe 25-point spread over a team you beat remarkably the last 3 times in those Oregon Ducks, I know the only shot you got to move that ball against that crew is to have Damon Williams start, to have Damon Williams threat, and to have Damon Williams play. And I know that you're also bowl eligible. So it's done. You're getting to a bowl game. DeMond and these other young guys are going to get a chance to practice. You're going to sign a class. You're going to bring some guys in as early enrollees, and you're going to get that momentum and that ball going into 2025. And even if it is a bloodbath, and even if DeMond takes a beating, and even if there's some real adversity that he's got to face, you know who's going to be better for it? The program in DeMond in 2025. It's time that DeMond Williams makes his first start. It'll be time on Thanksgiving weekend because DeMond will give you the best shot to try to do something against the number one team in America.